Hi, I'm Scarlett Johnson with Moms for Liberty, and I am here today with a great lady who is also a chapter chair in Colorado, Kristy Davis. And if you haven't heard what's going on in Colorado, you've been living under a rock, because it is the most terrible assault on parental rights that I've ever seen. And that's saying something, because I've been doing this for 5 years. There's one representative in Colorado who made an apt point that Colorado has crossed the Rubicon as far as parental rights. So I'm just going to have Kristy talk about this bill, what's happening in Colorado. So Kristy, you take the lead now.
Okay, thank you, Scarlett, and thank you for having me on today and allowing us to discuss what's going on in Colorado. So recently, legislation was passed. It's House Bill 251312, and this bill is a direct assault on parental rights. It pulls school autonomy away from our local districts. It circumvents child protection laws and imposes gender ideology in schools. So that's the brief overview of this bill. Do you want me to go into more detail?
Let's first, let's play a clip, because this has been national news. So I'm going to play one headline.
On parental rights in Colorado. You will not believe this. Democrats advancing a controversial bill that would effectively classify misgendering and dead naming as child abuse in custody decisions. Now, dead naming is when you refer to an individual by their birth name and not the new desired name. So in custody battles, that would now be considered coercive. The Democrats invoked a rule to avoid any debate on this bill and these changes. And now it's heading to the Democrat-controlled Senate, where it will likely pass. I mean, this is wild. Republican State Representative Jarvis Caldwell refused to stay silent, posting this.
When we were going into debate, starting the debate on House Bill 1312, the Democrat majority invoked Rule 16. Rule 16 is calling the question, and it ends debate immediately and then goes directly into a vote. And I believe they did this to silence us because they know how much negative attention this has been getting nationwide. And so what they did was they silenced us and did not let us represent our constituents and talk about the issues that we have with this bill. If you recall, House Bill 1312 says that if your child is confused about their gender identity and you don't affirm that confusion, that delusion, then you are guilty of child abuse and you can lose custody of your children. Now, here's what I wanted to say from the floor of the House of Representatives that I was robbed of saying and silenced. I wanted to say it is not me. It is not my constituents. It is not the people from my side of the aisle who are pushing this gender identity crap on the kids of Colorado. They are. And what they want to do with this bill is say that if they confuse your children and you don't affirm that confusion, they will take your child from you.
That is insane. And I agree. This is gender identity crap. So basically, House Bill HB 1312 states that if a parent doesn't affirm their so-called gender identity, if they don't use the correct pronouns, if they misgender their own child, that they could lose custody of their children. That's crazy.
And essentially what they're doing also is they're circumventing other protection laws from other states. So if a parent and a child move here from another state in a custody dispute and they come to Colorado, we're basically a sanctuary for them. And that parent can gain custody of their child and do gender affirming care, treatment, surgeries here in Colorado, while the other parent is in the state that they came from, not able to get their child back. And they could lose custody here to the parent that's in Colorado.
So Colorado, like California, would become a sanctuary state where kids could run away. They could, of any age, because they don't put any age distinctions. They don't, there's no, so if you're 12, if you're 13, and you run away to Colorado and say, I want to be affirmed, I want to start to receive gender affirming care, I want to get puberty blockers, I want to get cross-sex hormones, I want to be on track to have my breasts removed. Then in Colorado, they would find a sanctuary, even if their parents do not affirm, if they don't want their child to receive these drugs, if they don't want their child to receive this care, they would basically have no say. They would have no rights. All parental rights would be gone.
Well, what this bill is saying is it's the custody between two parents. So if one parent is affirming and the other one is not, they can come here to have those procedures done, and their ex-spouse can't, or father or mother of the child in another state can't do anything about it.
Have you gone to testify in Colorado, in Denver, about this legislation?
So on the day the bill was heard, they heard 12 hours of testimony. So it started around 3 o'clock and went till 2:55 a.m. I listened to 8 hours of the testimony. We submitted written testimony from our chapter because I was unable to testify that day in person.
So it was live streamed, and you saw it for 13 hours, and in the community. I've been there. I've done that. I've gone to testify, and when I've also submitted written testimony, and then even when I've gone in person to testify, sometimes, especially when it's regarding these issues regarding gender identity, providing this so-called gender affirming care, any bills regarding parental rights, it'll take all day, go into the night, and so you end up driving home, listening to the debate as it continues. Usually the other side is very good at activating their activists from all across the state, and sometimes even across the country. People will fly in, they will come, and they bring, we call them the clown cars, come in, and they just, they make a lot of noise, and they say a lot of crazy things. And some of those crazy things were actually said by other representatives, correct?
Yes.
There were representatives that basically called Moms for Liberty a hate group. What exactly did they say? What did these Democrats say about Moms for Liberty?
So Rep. Zara Zoki, she's a Democrat. She compared conservative parental rights groups to the KKK. So in a hearing on the bill last week, she said a well-stakeholder bill does not need to be discussed with hate groups, and we don't ask someone passing a civil rights legislation to go ask the KKK their opinion. And also Rep. Garcia, who sponsored the bill, during the open testimony or the opening statements for the bill, she said when she was asked if she had stakeholder, that's what they call going out and talking to all of your constituents, if she had stakeholdered the whole community, and she said she had stakeholdered the trans community, and she didn't stakeholder anybody else because she saw us as hostile.
And that is dehumanizing, that's othering, basically saying that if you don't agree with me, you're not even worthy of having a discussion with. Like, you are subhuman. You are, it's terrible. That is actual racism. That is actual hate. And that is suppression of speech. And it just proves that if they had the power, the woke left, the radical extremist wing of the Democrat Party, they would have no problem putting us into what I think in all in purpose, the gulags, like silencing us, digital gulags where we couldn't speak, we couldn't post. They wouldn't even need our opinion, so that's the whole purpose. So when they constantly use the rhetoric, like you're a Nazi, you're in the KKK, you're a hate group, you're white supremacy, it's all to legitimize othering us. Yes. Othering people that you disagree with, a way to say we don't even have to listen to you. I never have to listen to a debate. And that is actual tyranny.
Well, and it's dangerous and irresponsible for our legislators to be inciting division and potentially provoking violence against groups such as ours and parents themselves that are just trying to protect our kids.
Words matter. You're right. Words matter. The things you say matter. When you are an elected representative and you stand before all of your constituents, and it's broadcast all across the state, all across the country, and you say these people aren't even worthy of talking to, they are subhuman, they are animals, we we don't even have to listen to them. We don't have to care about what they think. And that means that as parents, you have no rights. The state can just come in, take over, and the state can parent the child in a way that is affirming and providing all of that gender affirming care. And you were recently you were interviewed. So you had yesterday we posted an article from the Blaze Media. And there was a direct quote from you, which I'll add right here, which I thought was great, where you said, our advocacy for parental rights is rooted in the U.S. Constitution and should never be labeled as hate. We at Moms for Liberty strive to ensure that all parents' rights are protected, and we oppose legislation like HB 1312, which seeks to use legislation as a way to separate parents from their children. And you are 100% correct about that. It's horrible. What has been your experience? What have you been receiving threats, support? What is your experience in Colorado?
Well, we have a lot of advocacy groups, and we've all been coming together to support each other and figure out ways to combat this bill. We've reached out nationally to all of our organizations, and we are getting a lot of support and help nationally. Our legislators have made it very clear that they are not going to listen to us. And so reaching out to them at this point is not working. So now we're going through news outlets and trying to get the story out nationally just to get some attention on this and some help, and to let the nation know that this doesn't just affect Colorado. This affects the entire nation, because this will impact custody battles across state lines, because Colorado is saying, we're not going to listen to your laws. We have our own, and we're going to circumvent yours.
Yes, and Colorado. So as we all know, President Trump, he right away immediately passed executive orders, which with this legislation, Colorado is basically saying, we don't care. We're going to do exactly what we want. Your executive order that bans this gender affirming care, we're not going to listen to. You come and, try and remove our federal funding. Executive orders that make it very clear that children are the responsibility of parents. The parents' rights are supreme, and that the state does not raise children, parents do. So all the executive orders, regarding gender ideology, saving women's sports, protecting women and girls in their private spaces through Title IX. Mm-hmm. Colorado's basically saying, we don't care. They're willing to lose federal funding.
Yeah, and this isn't the only bill they're doing it on. There's a lot of other bills this session that are stripping away parental rights. They violate state laws, they violate federal laws, they violate the Constitution. This bill in particular, it compels speech, it chills speech, it suppresses the freedom of the press, because they're not going to be able to speak freely on topics. And it's religious violation. It's awful. It strips away parental rights, and it also has a line item in there that discusses what the child's chosen name will be at school and how they can dress, and it makes it so that all public, private, and charter schools have to comply with the law, which says they're allowed to dress and have a chosen name that aligns with their gender ideology. And we have school choice here, and we have school autonomy, and they've basically taken that away from schools that want to go along with either their religious views or reality of biological sex.
So the Colorado legislators clearly going after. So there are, even though it's right now technically a blue state, you've got a Democrat governor, you've got Democrats that the House and the Senate, they have the majorities. However, there is school choice in Colorado, and there are charter schools that basically recognize only two biological sexes, and they require kids to dress in a uniform that is sex specific, girls dress like the girls, boys dress like boys. And I'm sure they don't, allow the boys to go into the girls' bathroom, and the teachers aren't required to say the preferred pronouns, all of that stuff. So basically, this legislation and the series of other bills that they're working on are completely stripping parents of any choice as far as education. I mean, basically you could homeschool or move.
Yeah. My kids' charter is a very strong conservative charter. And we just passed a resolution that turned into a policy to recognize only two sexes. And so once this bill passes, my school is either going to be forced to reverse course and comply with state law or risk having their charter pulled by the district.
So yeah, that to me says what this is really about. This is about completely crushing any opposition, removing choice, and again, like you said, silencing. I like what you said before when this is more than just a violation of Trump's executive orders. This is a violation of our First Amendment rights. The suppression of speech and violation of moral law, basically, that you're not allowed to parent your kid anymore. You're not allowed to instill your values into your children. Your family isn't allowed to choose the way that they would like to raise their children. They have to look to the state. This sounds to me like Maoist China. This Stalin. It's tyrannical. It's infuriating, and I can't believe that I can't believe that they're going this far. It's way outside the Overton window. They've gone way extreme. And isn't that a point that one Democrat even made, where he said, a Democrat representative or Democrat senator said, "You're going too far"?
Yeah, they have gone too far. I mean, this is pushing an ideology and saying that affirmation is the only answer. So it's ignoring silence, it ties our hands, and it's basically saying comply or you could risk losing your children. And to parents, that's everything.
Yeah, it is. So what are you doing to fight back now? So that we heard the bad news. This is really bad. I know one of the ways sunlight is the best disinfectant. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the only thing that you can do is fight back by exposing, letting the rest of the country know this is happening in Colorado. SOS, we need help. We need organizations, national organizations, to come in and shine a spot like this and help us fight. We need state organizations that are like-minded to come together, to unify, and really just, this is a huge fight. Everyone's got to come together, all the groups, any conservative group, any sane organization. Even I won't even say they have to be Republican. This is nonpartisan. No, every parent should feel outraged by this legislation. Every parent should say, this is going way too far. This is not what we had in mind when we voted for you. So what are you doing right now?
So we have come together with a bunch of other groups in town. We're getting a petition together. So everybody's signing this petition that we're going to take up and hand to Governor Polis. And we are planning rallies and just trying to get the word out about when this bill is going to be heard in the Senate, so we can get as many people as possible to testify and let our voices be heard that our parental rights are not going to be stripped away that easy.
When is your first rally?
We don't have the details on that yet. We're still working through those details, but there were a bunch of pastors that met, I believe it was yesterday, and they're planning a rally for next week.
Good. I actually just listened to one of my favorite podcasts, the Steve Deace Show, and yesterday, and the question he had is, where's the church? There are some leading Christian organizations that I think their flagship is in Colorado. So I'm glad that the church and faith leaders are answering the call, because if this isn't the hill you're willing to die on, dude, you don't have a hill. This is absolutely where anyone of faith needs to be, because they are coming for your children and they're coming after the church. They're coming after faith. So if what's next, if first they're going to come for the parents, and then they're going to just keep coming. They're going to come for the church, and they're going to silence and chill free speech everywhere. They're going to silence it in the schools. They're going to silence it in your home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in your home. This is Big Brother. They're going to tell you, you can't talk like this in your home. In your own home, you have to affirm a child's delusions, a child that might not be well, a child that's suffering from mental illness, a child that has a host of issues. And as a parent, you're trying to deal with it without affirming this delusion that they are in the wrong body.
There
And
was an attorney that testified in favor of the bill when it was in the House, and she said she was a civil rights attorney. And one of her comments was, you're free to say whatever you want in your own home, but when you come outside, you're not allowed to, is basically what she said. And I was like,
yeah, I'm not sure where I read that in the Constitution.
Yeah.
You're free to but you're not free to speak in your own home, because when you're in your home with your child, and if your child, your child's name is Sarah, and suddenly, no, I'm Sam, and you don't say yeah and start using, or if they identify with neo pronouns and identify as a rock, I mean, what if they identify as a unicorn? What if they, because, and I don't say this in jest. I have done the research. I have sat through trainings. I have read the books. Neo pronouns are a thing. I've just posted about that. There are no limits to the amount of identities that kids can have. They say this outright, that there is no limiting principle to gender ideology, and it descends into sheer madness and demands that children be sacrificed to this ideology. So parents like you, parents like me, we have to fight back. There's just no other option.
Yes, I did pull up the information on the rally for the pastors. So that's going to be April 17th. So in 2 days.
In 2 days. Okay.
At 1 p.m., they're going to pray, walk the Capitol. At 2 p.m., joint pastors press conference. And that's going to be up at the Denver State Capitol.
Great. And my request them live stream this, record everything. And if this is live streamed, we will definitely share that live stream. I can share it on my channel at Scarlet for Kids, and can share it at Moms for Liberty. And I'll show.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah. And I wanted to play this from, I know you are very close with Brandy. So to set this up, she's been fighting very, very hard. She's been very vocal.
Yes, Brandy Bradley is one of our House reps, and she is also my sister chapter up in Douglas County, Colorado, for Moms for Liberty.
Yay, Moms for Liberty. All right, let's listen. We're gonna.
There's all kinds of crap. Like, they're trying to make you a sanctuary state. So if, let's say, there's divorced parents, and I'm going, no, my 5-year-old boy is a boy. Ex-wife, you're not turning him to a girl. The state will coddle that parent and strip me of my rights, right? They'll take the kid away from me.
Correct. If a parent flees to Colorado, you can't go back to the other state. They're going to go after businesses. We're the 6th most regulated state as far as businesses goes. They're going to go after businesses that dead name or misgender their employees. Charter schools, we're going to have now gender neutral uniforms. So we're going to go after charter schools as well. The bill has no bounds. We're going to go after and attack every single industry, basically. And we have a single subject law in the state of Colorado, and they are going against all of that constitutionality. It is unconstitutional on so many different levels. And if the governor decides to sign this into law, we are ready for the lawsuits to attack.
Okay, so you mentioned 3 or 4 different subdivisions of a bigger bill. So I thought this was a parental bill, and it's going to strip parents of rights that misgender. But now you just added in businesses are going to get in trouble, charter schools are going to get in trouble. What else in this bill?
Well, I mean, if a parent comes from another state, then you can't go back to the state that maybe doesn't have dead naming or misgendering in CADA. And Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, they're going to add misgendering and dead naming into that. Well, guess what's also in CADA? Religious freedom and compelled speech. So you can't tell me that dead naming trumps my ability to have religious freedom or compelled speech. So we're not going to take it anymore. The parents are done. The line in the sand is drawn. War is going to come on these liberal, progressive Democrats. You're not going to continue to take our children. We are not going to tolerate it anymore.
Good for her. Great. No, we aren't going to take it anymore. Their line is in the sand. And that's what we won't discuss because that would be above our pay grade. We need a lawyer. But there will be legal ramifications if the Senate does move to pass it. But let's hope that it can be stopped, that enough attention can be brought to the state of Colorado and to what is happening to stop this. It has happened before. This does work, but it requires for normal people, ordinary people to get out of their comfort zone and speak up, stand up, and fight back because this is real. This is happening. And you know it all too well. And again, what chapter? So Brandy Bradley, and which chapter again is she chapter chair of?
She's in Douglas County, Colorado.
Great. Well, this is amazing, and this is with Moms for Liberty. You know, you start off as a parental rights activist. You'd be a chapter chair, and then you're running for school board, and then you're running for state house, and who knows what's next? Running for Congress, running for Senate. Because again, moms, we're not going to take it anymore, and we're not going to sit back and just watch this happen. We're going to educate, empower, and inform the community, this country at all levels of government, and fight. So we've talked recently. I also wanted to talk about something else. You said recently that you and another Moms for Liberty member actually did a training in Utah. What happened?
Yes. So fellow chapter chair Leslie Sawyer from Shasta County, California, has friends that live in Utah. And so they were very interested in Moms for Liberty, and we helped them with the situation that they had in one of their charter schools where there was a teacher who had been a male for many years and decided to come to school at the start of the year as a female and expected to have his students and others in the school call him by a different pronoun. So Moms for Liberty was able to step in and help them. And so we decided to come from Colorado and come from California together to educate and empower the parents there about what their parental rights are and inform them about the dangers of certain things like critical race theory, diversity and inclusion, and how social emotional learning is coming into schools and disrupting academics. And so we had a really great conference for those people, but we did have some opposition, which I think is what you want me to talk about.
Yes. So you did this, and what happened? So this was a conservative area,
Yes.
But some radicals found out about it, some extremists, some agitators, and you say that people, how many comments were under the Facebook posts?
So Leslie did an interview on their local radio station and then posted about the Parents Summit, which is what we called the event. And we had over 3,000 comments from across the country just calling us a hate group and saying awful things about Moms for Liberty and parental rights. And then they got a hold of the link to sign up for the event, and a bunch of them signed up for the event.
And they came to the event, and they just describe it in just shortly, like what are some of the things that they did to disrupt the event?
They were trying to be extremely disruptive, slow down the presentation. We had a slideshow that would have 6 or 7 bullet points on the topic, like SEL or CRT. And we couldn't even get past the first or second one. And they're just raising their hands, asking a bunch of questions about it, asking for facts, asking for all kinds of information. And we kept telling them, we're only 20 minutes into the 6-hour presentation. Calm down, listen to our the whole presentation. We'll have questions at the end. And then it got to the point where they just weren't even raising their hand. They were just blurting out, just being very rude, very condescending, trying to disrupt the meeting. They had rainbow shirts on. And eventually it got to the point where we had to ask them to leave, which they declined, and we had to call the police and have them removed.
And so why to talk about this? This is a tactic that is done. We do not have a chapter in Utah yet. And we have chapters in 48 states. We do not have a chapter in Utah or Vermont, but Utah is an area where it's a little surprising. Like, that's a very conservative state, lots of conservative counties. So you might say that there might be some apathy, but in reality, there are these activist groups that can make it very difficult to organize, anything anti-woke, anything that any sort of conservative group, particularly a group like Moms for Liberty. They make it very difficult because they know how powerful it would be if more of these conservative counties actually started to join together and do basically what the left does: organize, inform, unite, get people elected, educate, empower. They don't want that to happen. They're going to do everything they can to prevent that. And a successful tactic has been to basically bully conservatives. Go and make it seem like they're huge. Make you think, look over your shoulder and think, oh my gosh, I don't even know the members of my community. In reality, it is a very small group. They use bots. They use paid agitators. They will have people they will activate. There'll be people that come into your community that don't live there. There will be people that move there, and their whole job is just to agitate and to prevent conservatives from being successful, or Team Sanity from being successful. So to be aware of that and to not be afraid, do not look at these efforts and think, oh, what can I do? Like, I'm so outnumbered. You're not outnumbered. The vast majority agree with you.
Yes.
Look at the polling. Look at the polling on gender ideology and gender identity. Even Democrats, the majority of Democrats agree that boys should not be in girls' bathrooms, that parents should not lose their parental rights if their 10-year-old decides, hey, maybe I was born in the wrong body. They do not agree with boys and girls sports. It's across the board. They agree with us. The majority agree with us. So this small minority that's very loud and very obnoxious and very determined, they will make a lot of noise. And most people, when they see craziness, when they see someone acting, saying things and acting a certain way, they'll sort of pull back. They will, I'm not going to go to that meeting. I don't want to get that kind of attention. I don't want them to come after my business. I don't want them to stalk me on social media. And that's how they win. And in your experience, how do you win?
I think this strengthened our message because watching these people and how they acted and how they had to be threatened to be removed, and the way that they carried themselves and how obnoxious they were, it gave us the opportunity to tell the rest of the people who had attended, we call them the loud minority. They're going to come in, they're going to bully, they're going to use these kinds of tactics. We, as Moms for Liberty, always carry ourselves in a professional manner. We're joyful warriors. We always carry ourselves as if our children are watching, because they are. And that let us get that message across to them. Let them be like that. Let them be loud. Let them be crazy, but do not back down. These are your children. So we are standing in the gap between all of this craziness and our children. And that is our job, to hold tight and to stay together and to make sure that parental rights are upheld in this country. And so it let us show them let those people be loud, but do not let them gain control. Do not let them gain any footing in your county, because they will. They come in loud, they come in strong. Everybody's trying to be nice and hear, other sides, but they will not hear the other side. And we have dealt with that here in El Paso County. We had, during COVID, strong liberals on our school boards, and they were masking our kids. They were doing online learning and forcing all of this stuff on our kids that we as parents knew weren't right. And we were able to flip 4 of our school boards from liberally controlled to Republican and conservative school boards and start reversing some of the stuff that had come in underneath parents' eyes before COVID opened them up to us, and start stripping away slowly at all of the equity stuff that they were building in, and to remove masks and vaccine requirements for our students. So we just have to stay strong and stay on that course. I know COVID's over, but now they're coming for other things. Academics are sliding in this country.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, those numbers were revealed earlier this year, that the academics across the board in every state but one had fallen in, not even related to COVID. There's been a further drop because of the COVID lockdowns, because of what happened to children during that time, the policies enacted by the Biden administration, and the way that local school boards and local county health departments reacted, where they came after our children yet again. We were to sacrifice our children for just so that some very healthy adults could feel more safe, or because, again, wearing a mask was, now it's carrying around the trans flag or using pronouns. But just a few years ago, you virtue signaled by wearing your mask. You wore it in your car. You wore it walking around outside. The more you wore a mask, the more virtuous you were. The more of an adherent you were to woke ideology. And so now you use pronouns, and, forget Louis Vuitton's, the accessory for the woke woman is to have a trans child. And the more trans children you have, I guess the more status you have. It's like a status symbol or something. And that to me is sad. It's and kind of terrifying, considering that a lot of these folks are teachers, they're counselors, and now they're in our state legislators, and they're in charge, and they're a little crazy.
Yeah, it's not about safety, it's about control. I think that's clear what they've been trying to do since COVID, and clear with what they're trying to do with bills like House Bill 251312.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been great talking to you. I know you will, I'm going to share an image, because on Friday, we could look to see you and our co-founder and executive director, Tina Deskovich, on Newsmax discussing this very issue.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Yes. And this is a great picture. Where were you in this picture? I know, but I thought tell others.
So Moms for Liberty did a boot camp at the Patriot Academy with Rick Green a couple of months ago, and it was very exciting. They had chapter chairs come from across the country, and we all got together and learned about the Constitution and learned, what happens on the House and Senate floor and how a bill becomes a law, and we got to participate, and it was a lot of fun.
Yes. You caught us. Moms for Liberty, that evil organization where moms get together and they read the Constitution and they learn how to participate in the democracy, actually a constitutional republic. I know, but they love to say, oh, our democracy. We actually read the Constitution, read the Bill of Rights, try to understand them, apply them to our lives, take that home, take that back to our home state, and share with others, the joyous news that you do not have to live under the oppressive boot of the federal or state government, and that we have God-given rights that we must assert. And one of them is certainly our parental rights. We must stand and fight for our children. And I am grateful for all that you are doing in Colorado. Do you have any last statements or words you'd like to say?
I think I'm going to touch on something that you had just said. It's just parents have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing, care, and education of our children. And the state and federal government should absolutely not be telling parents what we should be doing with our children, especially when it comes to our morals and values. And we need to stand strong. We need to unite because our parental rights are under attack here, especially in Colorado.
Well, I couldn't end it on a more perfect note, except to say that if you would like to learn more about Moms for Liberty and join our organization, you can go to momsforliberty.org. And there you can see we have a plethora of so much information. And you could also sign up to become a national member or click on our map, click on your state, see if there is a chapter in the county that you live in. And if there isn't, maybe think about starting one. That would be great. I also want to share that there is an event. I'm going to put this forward. That tonight you can tune in for Moms for Liberty University Gender 102, a discussion on sex and gender with Dr. Jay Richards, and Billboard Chris, where if you want to learn more about gender ideology, I think Dr. Richards will talk more about the history of it, what it really is, and Billboard Chris will give you some boots on the ground information. And if you haven't followed him, you should. He's a friend of mine. He's tremendous, and he's doing great work, not only in America, but, he's from Canada. He was just in Australia. He travels the world with his wearing his signs that children cannot consent to puberty blockers and other great slogans. So tune in for this. It's a virtual event. And if you sign up ahead of time, you can even participate by asking questions. So you go to m4lu.org and sign up. It's absolutely free to do it. And it's a great learning experience. Tell others about it. I think sometimes you and I, Kristy, we know a lot about gender ideology. This is something that we spend a lot of time researching, and we go to school board meetings. We go through board docs. We watch our state legislators very closely. We pay attention to what's going on nationally, but a lot of people they're beginners, they don't really know what it is. They don't really understand. And the more that you understand how insidious gender ideology really is, the more you will be able to dig deep, find that courage to fight back, because that we're up against something very, very evil and very, very powerful. So thank you so much, Kristy. I know we'll be talking again really soon. Hope there should be some really exciting opportunities for advocacy coming up in the future in Colorado. We are going to support you. And if you need anything, you always reach out to me or reach out to Moms for Liberty. So if you're in Colorado, look up Kristy Davis. Again, you want to let them know about your chapter. You have a private Facebook group, but if you're a member, if you become a member of your chapter, then you can join and join up with her and fight with her.
Well, thank you, Scarlett, and thanks for having me on today. We really appreciate you helping us get the message out about Colorado.
Yep. All right. Well, everyone have a blessed day and continue to fight for your children. Thanks.